In a dark and distant future, when the undead have arisen from apocalyptic ashes, an original story unfolds. 10,000 years in the future, vampires rule the night. They once ruled outright, but their numbers are in decline. Vampire hunters now threaten the vampires with extinction. D, also known as Vampire Hunter D, is a damper, half-vampire, half-human who travels around the frontier in search of an ability. In almost every book it is noted that D has superior strength, skills and knowledge in comparison to other dampers. It is hinted that this is because he has some special connection to the sacred ancestor. It is generally regarded that D is his son, though this has never been explicitly stated, and that he is the result of crossbreeding experiments performed by the sacred ancestor to halt the inevitable decline of the nobility. Charlotte, a young woman, is abducted by Baron Meyerlink, a vampire nobleman who is known not to harm humans needlessly. Charlotte's father, John Elbound, hires D, a damper, to find her and rescue her, and alternatively, kill her humanely as she's been turned into a vampire. He offers D $500,000 as a down payment, and offers him $10 million if he carries out the job. D has Elborn double the payment, and agrees to search for Charlotte. At the same time, Charlotte's older brother, Alan Elborn, hires another group of vampire hunters, the notorious Marcus brothers, compass to the leader Borgoff, a hulking man named Nold, a blade master named Kyle, a physically disabled psychic named Grove, and a woman named Layla, who hunts vampires because of a personal grudge, rather than for monetary gain. The two parties, D and the Marcus brothers, race inexorably after Meyerlink. However, Meyerlink hires the mutant Barbarois, a group of lethal mercenary bodyguards. They consist of Carolyn, a shapeshifter, Benj, a shadow manipulator, and Machier, a werewolf. Throughout the course of the film, two of the Marcus brothers, Nold and Kyle, end up being killed by the mutant Barbarois, while Layla and Borgoff continue their search for Charlotte. The story progresses. Meyerlink's abduction of Charlotte turns out to not be as it seemed, as it's revealed that Charlotte willingly ran away with Meyerlink as his lover. Charlotte rightfully feared that no one would understand their relationship, with her a human and Link a vampire. Throughout their search, and after both characters save each other from seeming death at separate points, Dee has a conversation with Layla, where she reveals that she hunts vampires, because a vampire killed her mother. Dee tells her that he hunts vampires as he has no other choice as a damper, and she can have a life that someone like him could never have, the life of a normal human. Layla, having not exactly taken the life of a normal human, instead being a vampire hunter, fears that no one will mourn her death when that time comes. She make a pact with Dee, that if either one of them survives, the survivor will bring flowers to the other's grave. Dee admits that he does not expect himself to survive the bounty hunt, after coming so close to death. In the final act of the film, Meyerlink transports Charlotte in his carriage to the castle of Chave, where Countess Carmilla, Meyerlink's matron, waits for them. Carmilla, a ghost of a vampire who died long ago, reigned supreme within the castle of Chave when vampires were all-powerful and unchallenged. However, her bloodlust was so strong that Dee's father, an ancient noble vampire king, killed her in disgust. Carmilla promises Meyerlink and Charlotte travel to a faraway city known as the City of the Night, where they can be free to love each other, which they will travel to in a large and ancient spaceship-like structure, hidden beneath the castle of Chave. Carmilla explains that most ancient castles had similar ships hidden within them, and that back when vampires reigned supreme, these ships weren't an uncommon means for vampires to travel to far regions. Carmilla notes that the ship is old and hasn't flown in a long time, and that she doesn't know if the ship will fly safely, but that Meyerlink and Charlotte are allowed to take that risk, if they so wish. Dee and the remaining Marcus brothers separately trail Meyerlink to the castle of Chave, and as they enter the castle in their search for Charlotte, Carmilla plays psychological tricks on them. Borgoff, for example, is shown Nold and Kyle, the dead members of the Marcus brothers, returning to life. Borgoff ends up also being killed in his surprised and ecstatic state by Carmilla's ghost, and it turns out Nold and Kyle never return to life at all. This leaves Layla as the only surviving member of the Marcus brothers. As she continues her search for Charlotte inside the castle, Carmilla manipulates Dee's mind, and shows him a vision of his mother, in which she apologizes to Dee for birthing him as a damper, and states that she couldn't help it, as she was a human in love with Dee's vampire father, and attempts to explain that humans are capable of loving vampires. Dee strikes this vision of his mother down with his sword, and returns to a normal state. In a plot twist, Carmilla turns on Meyerlink and Charlotte, as Carmilla had actually plotted to kill Charlotte all along, with the reasoning being that Carmilla needed the blood of a virgin, to leave her ghostly, ethereal form, and return to life. Dee destroys Carmilla's ghost just as Carmilla is performing the ritual and draining Charlotte of her blood. Dee, still with a job to do in bringing Charlotte safely back home, engages Meyerlink in battle, as Meyerlink doesn't want Dee to take his lover away from him. Dee stabs Meyerlink through the chest with his sword, but not through his heart, injuring Meyerlink, but allowing him to live. During their encounter, Charlotte has passed away due to the ritual that Carmilla had been performing previously, and Dee takes the ring off of her finger as proof of her death to bring back to Elborn, as he ceases battle with Meyerling. Dee, along with Layla, make their leave of the castle of Chaith, and allow Meyerling to leave for the city of the night in the castle of Chaith's ship, with Charlotte's corpse on board. Dee and Layla agree to ride back into town together on Dee's horse, as Layla jokingly tells Dee that the reward is rightfully hers, but this time, she'll allow him to have it. Before riding off, they watch in the distance as the ship hidden underneath the castle takes to the skies with Charlotte's corpse, and Meyerling inside. Final scene of the movie, Dee arrives at Layla's funeral, watching her loved ones mourn from a distance. Many decades have passed since all of the previous events, as a little girl revealed to be Layla's granddaughter, approaches and greets Dee, and invites him to stay with her family for a while. Dee declines, saying that he simply came to repay a favor to an old friend, who feared no one would mourn her death. Dee admits that he was glad she was wrong. The girl thanks him, and Dee replies by smiling gently at her, and leaves. The film received generally favorable reviews from American critics. It received a rating of 62 on the website Metacritic. The Chicago Reader gave a favorable review of the film, referring to it as a gorgeously animated surrealist adventure. The New York Daily News referred to the film as beautiful, witty and provocative, and that it should appeal to fans and non-fans alike. The San Francisco Chronicle praised the director Yoshiaki Kawajiri, stating that he has a gift for striking visuals, but also noted that his story manages to be simultaneously thin and chaotic. Now, let's get back to Dee and try to analyze his character, his look and his powers, and what makes him the perfect vampire hunter. Dee was originally a conjoined twin, with an identical brother who is also simply named Dee, referred to by the narrator as Fake Dee, who, while just as strong as the real Dee, is the complete opposite of the Dee's personality. Being both cruel and given to humor, which ultimately leads them to become enemies. The pair were born in the Sacred Ancestors research facility deep beneath the village of Sedok, where many noble human hybrid experiments occurred. Sometime in the past, the real Dee was given the symbiotic being Left Hand, and left the facility and believed to have destroyed it, while his brother was confined by the Sacred Ancestor. Little else is known about Dee, where he is going and what he is searching for. He rarely converses with anyone except those who hire him to destroy vampires, and even then he says only what is necessary. Dee has never shown overt affection towards anyone, vampire or human. The most that others can hope to expect from would be a smile, but it is generally accepted that this is a rare thing for the emotionless hunter to do. Although Dee's exact age is never revealed, he is known to be at least 5,000 years old, as stated when escorting Byron Balazes. The group arrives at an ancient noble air terminal, where the facility AI says that it was told of Dee by the Sacred Ancestor, when he visited 5 millennia ago. But there were also hints that he may actually be much older, such as in the case of Dr. Gretchen using an attack that was used on the Sacred Ancestor 10,000 years ago. Once she used it on Dee, he seemed to recall it, giving the true question of his age and shocking Dr. Gretchen. In the novel Tyrant Stars 1-2, the character Kima reveals he was in service to Dee, referring to him as Lord Dee, which suggests he may have had others in service to him at one point, and may have held a domain of his own like so many nobility. This predates his time with Left Hand, as he attests. It also suggests there may be much more to his true origins as well. This is further corroborated with Gilson, who also remembers this from 10,000 years ago. Dee's looks are described as unrivaled, so much so that even men find him gorgeous, and women swoon. In the first book he is described as wearing a white-brimmed traveler's hat, a faded black long coat, wearing a blue pendant and a combat utility belt. It's also noted that he carries a curved longsword strapped on his back. He's described as being a youth between 17 to 18 years with a milky white complexion, a powerful frame, and a low voice. He has thick masculine eyebrows, a smooth bridge of a nose, with long thin cold eyes that are quite clear. His lips were also described as being tightly drawn, and his hair color is black. Women often take notice of his muscularity. When Dee drinks his blood or is motivated enough, he can instantly transform into a full vampire. During this time a complete change goes over him. His once steel-willed reserved eyes go from dark to a blood red, shining a red light which covers him and everything around him in vermilion, blazing with the unyielding explosion of emotion and an even stronger will. Before he could be thought of as human, but once this change has overtaken him, he is easily recognized as a supremely powerful noble. Dee is very cold and distant, but he is not an intentionally abrasive person. His demeanor is forged from steel, seemingly emotionless, but is capable of adequately expressing himself when the situation calls for it. This is most often when his client is either in danger or their safety is being used as a threat against him, frightening the instigators with a flash of white-hot anger. Dee, by his admission to Aria, claims to have lost something that can no longer be replaced. What this something is, has inspired him to become a hunter seemingly. Like Aria, it may have been family dear to him. This may have something to do with his mother. The common theme in the illusions of the mind used against him by his enemies that employ the dearest of memories in both the books and the movie Bloodlust is the memory of his mother. He has also said many times to be in search for something. Many times this has something to do with his father. Whether or not he is the end of a very long road to the path and reward he is seeking isn't clear. The sacred ancestor may just be the means to which or have the information desired that he is seeking and for whatever reason is withholding it. But D is a selfless person and sees the wrongs wrought by the nobility and takes jobs many times absent whatever desired made him become a hunter. First and foremost, D is a hunter, and hunters by nature were largely deficient in things other humans possessed. Since the violence, evil, and misanthropy they encountered in their daily lives left them unable to adapt to society, hunters were kept at a distance from other people, and also chose to keep their distance from others. So hunters had no choice but to be nomads. With no spouses or children or settled family lives, their search for nobles left them roaming the frontier in an ambivalent existence in which they lived only to destroy the nobility, but couldn't make a living without them. Often others didn't know their real names or where they were from, and since hunters didn't talk about themselves, they often became legends of the frontier. Like so many other things though, even here D proves to be the exception. He has shown many times he has the ability to do whatever he desires to do. Adapting to society would be a small feat for him. He was asked to stay and maybe become a teacher in Teeps. He was asked maybe not become a farmer in Dark Nocturne. Even in Mysterious Journey to the North Sea, when White and Sue offered D to stay in Florence to be a fisherman, D in a surprising reply, actually was considering their offer. Each time he shows the ability to adapt to society if he wished, showing the skills to stay anywhere or do anything, but each time he declines these offers. Dead set on this unnamed desire that continues to drive him. D also does not take kindly to those who get in his way or interfere with his work. He has proven time after time that he is not a man to be trifled with. In the case of Murtaugh, the mayor of Shirley's Door, the man tries to run D out of town after the hunter helped save Cecil the first night she's left out as a sacrifice. With a group of 10 men against the 1D, Murtaugh thinks he has the upper hand, but only after D relieves some of the men of their weapons and fingers. With his sword does the mayor realize his mistake: keep your nose out of someone else's business, you just might lose it. Though he would never admit it, D respects individuals who demonstrate a fierce determination to survive the hardships cast upon them by noble and supernatural beings, and has been shown to assist these persons without discussions of payment or reward. Indeed, this respect is the catalyst of many of his most dangerous hunts. This aspect of his personality is so contrasted with his perceived demeanor, that it becomes many times the source of light mockery by Left Hand. Speaking of his left hand, D's constant companion is his talking left hand, which is sometimes referred to as Left Hand. It is revealed that this is some sort of symbiotic entity which has taken up residence in D's hand, although why he has done so is not clear. The Hand, or Lefty as fans have affectionately termed him, appears to have supernatural powers independent from his host, and occasionally uses them to help D. More often than not, however, Lefty generally prefers sitting back and letting D do the work, usually throwing in a sarcastic comment or two at D's expense. It's more likely than not its stomach is a pocket dimension. Lefty has lots of abilities which we will try to mention. Starting with elemental absorption. Left Hand can absorb the 4 cardinal elements of fire, all forms of heat, water, any liquid, including blood and urine, air, and earth, to grant D more power or revive him when his life is extinguished. Left Hand once drained a lake of water to revive D after he was staked in the heart, and removed that weakness. In the 6th novel, it absorbed hurricane force winds capable of blowing D away. Energy absorption. Left Hand has absorbed of note 100 billion volt color of lightning, the energy from a detonating nuke, energy straight from the heart of an antimatter reactor, and a particle beam from a space cannon that burned through half the asteroid belt with enough power to punch through a planet 2 to 3 times Earth's size. Dimensional absorption. The Elder God created a space that absorbed the entire universe. D was thrown into the Milky Way, and Left Hand was able to absorb and negate it. Soul consumption. Left Hand can also devour souls or phantoms, like Carmilla in Bloodlust. Tactile telepathy. He can also invade the minds of those it touches, drawing forth knowledge, or anything else it desires. He has since grown much more resistant to a stake to the heart, even being impaled on a tree without dying, needing blood, only to speed up the process of regeneration back to normal rates. Elemental blasts. Lefty can also generate gale force winds, blasts of heat, water, and freeze objects in blocks of ice. Vampire Hunter D's gothic charms may be lost on those unfamiliar with the anime series that spawned it, but the crisp action and nightmarish style will satisfy horror fans whom are having a bit of a bloodlust. This is one of the best anime, and even nowadays it stands its ground against other recent anime. It is definitely a must-watch. Do you like vampires? What are your thoughts on this story and animation? Leave a like and a comment. Thank you for watching.